Okay, welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Sam Biglieri, and I'm an assistant professor in the School of Urban and Regional Planning at Ryerson University, the soon to be renamed Ryerson. And tonight we're going to be talking about a study that we are just getting started and just launching, and it's all about e-bike use for seniors in Northwest Toronto. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and listen to this webinar. Something I'll say at the outset is that I intend for this to be a conversation, and so if you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand, and then I can call on you and ask you to unmute, and you can tell us your question. Also, feel free to use the chat function as well, and I will try to keep an eye on that as we go along. The first thing we're going to do tonight is just to get a little bit of a sense of where everyone is calling in from. So you should see a poll pop up on your screen right now, and we're hoping that you can participate in this poll by telling us, where do you live? Do you live in Northwest Toronto, another part of Toronto, outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada? Let us know. All right, we've almost got everybody participated. Okay, so most people are joining us from another part of Toronto or outside of Toronto. So welcome, thank you for coming. This study itself is more targeted towards seniors who are living in Northwest Toronto, but of course we are happy to have you here. And there might be possibilities for this study to expand in the future. So welcome, and let's keep moving. So this project is a partnership between myself as a researcher at the university and the Toronto Council on Aging and our Greenway Conservancy. So the Toronto Council on Aging is a grassroots nonprofit based here in the city, and they focus on civic engagement and education, running a variety of different programs. And we've actually been running a ton of programming virtually during COVID. And the TCA has been around since the year 2000. Prior to that, it was the North York Seniors Council. So a long history of being in the city. And our board is over 50% older adults. And then our Greenway is an organization that we partner with as well, and they're supporting the use of practical micro-mobility networks and devices that connect businesses, entrepreneurs, and residents. I should also note that our study is being funded by the Ontario Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility, as well as a grant from Ryerson University. This is our research team. So that's me, Sam Biglieri. We also have Morgan Baker, who's our research coordinator. Morgan, if you can wave there so people can see you. And then Cody, who is our e-bike training expert. Oh, Cody, can you wave? Thank you. And so this is our research team. But before we get into what the study is about, I find it's really useful to give you a sense of where I'm coming from personally as a researcher. And so you can sort of understand a little bit more about me and why this work is important to me. So to start off, I like to start with the personal. So I was really lucky. I got to grow up with all four of my grandparents and my great-grandmother. And something that I noticed growing up was how different places that we live in affect our health and well-being. And I saw it really quite prominently in my grandmother, who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And she lived in a suburban neighborhood, a place where you had to rely on the car. And we really watched as her world collapsed in on her as she was no longer able to drive, not able to take public transit. And so I kept wondering, you know, what might make that place easier for her to move around in as she had dementia. And that really has blossomed into other research about older adults and their mobility more generally. And that's why I'm really excited about this project. In terms of expertise, I do research with people living with dementia, older adults, and I also do work in and about COVID-19 and how that pandemic has played out. To give you a sense, this is some of the work that I've done previously. And so really, again, ranging from helping people living with dementia navigate public spaces to the e-bike work and more general work with older adults. So let's get to the study. What's the purpose of this study? So through this study, we want to understand the supports and challenges someone might experience while using an e-bike in their neighborhood. And what we want to do is we also want to understand, does using an e-bike change your everyday patterns? So does it change how you move around your city? If you had access to an e-bike, would it change how you got places? And that's really at the core of this research. And a secondary part of this research is trying to understand, if you had access to an e-bike and it was community access, so let's say maybe you don't want to buy an e-bike, but you want to borrow one from a community group, what might that program look like? And the idea here is to provide insight to urban planners, municipalities, community workers, and groups on how to create programs that provide access to this kind of transportation. So what does the existing research tell us? Well, there is some research out there about e-bike use in older adults, but a lot of that research is, going on one bike ride with a person using the e-bike and asking them about their experience, or it's about interviewing older adults who already use an e-bike about their experience. It's not really about understanding change in everyday patterns. And the thing about e-bikes is that they have the potential to overcome issues associated with distance. So in a suburban environment, you might be a couple of kilometers away from the grocery store. And perhaps if you had a little bit of an e-assist, you might be able to get to the grocery store and back versus using a regular bike. And so there's a lot of potential with e-bikes to sort of lengthen the trip that you can take on a bicycle. And like I said, there's no study out there yet that I've seen that really looks at how does mobility change with the use of an e-bike. So the goal of the research is twofold. So one, understand the challenges and supports for older adults to using e-bikes in suburban areas. And then secondly, understanding your preferences for how a community lending program could be set up in the future. And so what does the study involve? Well, the study involves a couple of different phases, and I'm going to take you through them right now. So the first phase is a virtual introductory interview. And so in this interview, we're going to ask you some questions about, how did you get around when you were younger? How do you get around right now? Where are the most common places you travel to from your home? Is it the grocery store, the pharmacy? What are those places that you usually go to? And the purpose of asking you those questions is so that we can actually create personalized maps for you to help you find safe routes to get from your home to those places. So like a safe route from your home to, let's say, the food basics, for instance. Phase two is getting your baseline information. So we will give you a GPS tracker and a travel diary and ask you to fill that out for 2 weeks. And what this is going to do is it's going to tell us, okay, what are your everyday patterns? Are you using a car? Are you walking places? Are you taking public transit? And really just trying to understand what's your everyday mobility. The third phase is we're going to bring the bike to you. And in this ETrike demonstration, that's when Cody and Morgan, and probably myself as well, will come by and teach you how to use the e-bike. And then phase four, you get the e-bike. So you get to hold on to that e-bike for 2 weeks and continue to do your everyday things, go to the grocery store, go to the pharmacist, maybe you're going to work. And we're also going to ask you to continue to carry that GPS tracker and the travel diary. So we're going to get 2 weeks without the e-bike and 2 weeks with the e-bike. The two final phases, so phase 5 is a virtual post-experience interview, And in this, we're going to ask you, okay, what was it like to use the e-bike? What was something, maybe you wish you'd known earlier? What's something could be improved about using the e-bike? That kind of thing. And then the last phase is an optional phase, but we're looking for everyone in the study to join a virtual focus group where we're going to talk about that community lending program together. So I'm going to show you a couple of photos about the pieces of equipment that'll be used in this study. So the first is the GPS tracker. So this is the Columbus GPS tracker. It is very tiny. It's about this big. And all you do is wear it. It needs to be plugged in at night. But what you do is you can put it in your purse, you can put it in your pocket, and walk around with it. The thing that we love about this GPS tracker is that it's really easy to use. I've used it with people living with dementia for the same kind of, for 2 weeks, and it's been really easy for them to use. But we also like it because it stores all of the information on the device. That means that at no point could I, go into the computer and see where you are. All of the information is stored on the device. Another interesting thing to note is that this GPS tracker gets very confused when it's inside. So that means I can't tell if you're in the kitchen or if you're in the basement or whatever. That kind of data is completely obscured. So it's only getting when you leave home and the different locations that you go to. But whenever we represent data, we're going to make sure that no one can tell where your home is, and no one can tell, let's say it's a friend or a family's home as well. The second thing you will be doing is using the travel diary. So it's pretty simple. It's a piece of paper. It's going to ask you to say, okay, what's the date? When did you leave? When did you come back? Where did you go? How did you get there? Who were you with? And did you notice anything that you liked or did not like? So maybe you go out on your e-trike and you say, I really liked biking along this street. It felt very comfortable. That's the kind of thing that we're hoping for you to write down. And perhaps the most important piece of equipment is the bike. So I'm going to show you a quick little video here. It's about 5 minutes long. Let me just change all of my screens here. And this is actually the how-to video for our bicycle. And so I'm going to play that now. And please let me know if you cannot hear anything. Can you hear it? Can people give me a thumbs up if they can hear it? Thumbs up. All right, and there's one more video that talked about charging the bike. So let's see. See that as well. All right, thanks everybody. And I just saw a comment in the chat from Carolina, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, sorry. But hold on to that question till the end because we actually have another project going about older adults and long-term care. So happy to talk about that as well. All right, I am just gonna navigate back to our PowerPoint. I hope you enjoyed those videos. A huge thank you to Francine, who's on this call, and her sister Ama for being such wonderful models for that video. So in terms of participants, this is who we're looking for in this study. So we're looking for 10 seniors, 10 older adults over the age of 55 who live at home, so not in a long-term care home at this time, can safely store the e-bike, so either in a secured garage or within your apartment unit, and then also lives in the northwest area of Toronto. And like I said, you know, if you don't live in the northwest area of Toronto and you're still interested, please let us know because there might be an opportunity in the future to expand the area. And so we'd love to keep your information on file. Another important thing to note here is that everyone gets a $50 gift certificate to the place of their choice upon completion of the study. Now, it's important for me as a researcher to talk about your rights as participants and your responsibilities. So to start off, participation in this study is completely voluntary. That means that let's say you get halfway through the study and you decide, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. That's totally fine. You totally have the right to withdraw. You have the right to choose that your data not be used as well. And so within a consent form, it'll tell you what the due date for that is, like the due date to pull your data out, but all that information is there. You can also choose to, let's say you're in an interview and we ask a question and you're not comfortable answering that question, you can say, you know what, I'm not comfortable, let's move on, and that's also totally fine. Now, the risks for this study are considered minimal. You're going to be biking on safe streets. You're going to be biking on safe routes. That's part of that introduction interview. And the e-bike itself is quite stable, as you saw in the video. So to note that as well. And then finally, the information. So the only people that will know or be able to connect, let's say, Mary Jo's data to Mary Jo herself would be the research team. And then within when we create reports or when we write articles, you'll only be identified by a pseudonym or by saying like participant A, for instance. So that means that, again, your personal data won't be out there, but it will be seen in aggregate and you will be identified with a pseudonym. So a question that folks like to ask is, will this study help you directly? And we don't know if this study will help you personally, help you directly. However, what we hope to know and understand is from your perspective, what urban planners and other city builders can do to make micro-mobility solutions like e-bikes more accessible to seniors. And the hope here is to influence those kinds of policymakers and community group folks. And we're also going to be advising our Greenway on how a community lending program might get set up. So the idea is that we're going to use that information to help set up that community lending program. Now, potential risks. I'm not sure why my thing is moving, so apologies there. Obviously, safety is our top priority. That's why we spend so much time teaching you how to use the e-bike as well. That's why we have Cody and Morgan. That's why they're going to develop customized routes for you as well. And it's also about, relearning the rules of the road, being able to ride safely and minimizing the risks associated. But if you're used to riding a bike, this should be very similar to that. We're also asking that all participants wear a bike helmet while they are on this e-bike. Another risk is a risk of theft. Now, we do have, as you saw, there's a lock on the bike, so you're able to lock it up when you're in public spaces, and we also have some anti-theft insurance. Finally, we want to advise that at your home, you have a secure place to store this bike, be it in like a locked garage or within your home as well. So what's going to be done with the results? So first of all, we're going to come back to you and tell you what happened in the study. That's primary for us. We're also going to be presenting this information at things like academic conferences, journal articles, professional publications, really trying to get the word out about the study and about the findings. Something else that we're hoping to do is to create workshops for city staff. So really trying to reach those policymakers in the best way we know how. And then with your permission, of course, there's a new website I'm launching for another project that is collecting stories of older adults across Canada in a variety of formats, videos, poetry. And so if that's something participants are interested in, we might ask them if they'd like to be part of that. In terms of signing up for the study, there are a couple of ways. You can email our research coordinator, Morgan Baker, directly. Her email is right there. You can also fill out the form. Morgan, if you can drop that in the chat, that would be very helpful. You can also give me a telephone call. My phone number is there. And you can also visit our studies website. So I also see the chat is blowing up. So I'm just going to look there for a second. Okay. There's the Google form. All right. So Carolina, so let's start with questions. So maybe we can ask some questions about this study in particular, and then Carolina, tell me what it is before I keep messing up here.
It's Carolina. Okay. Thank you.
Carolina. Okay, and then we'll get to that we can get to that question in a second. But does anyone have any questions about that information that we've presented there? Or about using the bike?
Yes, something I'd like to ask, please.
Yeah.
I would like to find out roughly roughly how wide the bike is. Because if we have a garage, it can fit easily. But if someone has, some place in their house that they may have to bring it up, can it be brought up one step maybe, and how wide it is? Roughly how wide?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Cody and Morgan to just double check that. I believe it's on the website before I say something wrong. But yes, you could lift it up probably one step. The bike is pretty heavy. So I wouldn't say more than one step is doable, to be absolutely honest. Morgan and Cody, if you have things to add, let me know. You're probably looking for, if you live in an apartment, to have barrier-free access to be able to get into the elevator and making sure the bike fits into the elevator. So Cody and Morgan will get back to you about the size of it, and that should help as well. There you go. So we've got the total width is 89 centimeters wide, and the total length is 180 centimeters.
Somebody want to
So
convert that to
180
inches?
centimeters?
Hold on. Sorry, Star? What?
I'm sorry. Convert it to inches for us oldies who don't use centimeters.
All right. Cody, can you convert it to inches for us?
I'll do it shortly. Just
All
bear in
right.
mind, this is from the European website, so.
I was sorry, Cody. Well, it fits through a door, a normal door.
I'm like, I need to see the inches now too.
Yeah.
All right.
I think a normal door is a little less than 4 feet, 3 feet, maybe about 39 or 30, but that's just barely.
35 inches wide and 70 inches long.
So 35 inches, okay, so it should be able to go through a normal door.
Okay. So I had my hand up.
Yes, Jane, please.
My question is that I am under 5 feet tall, and it looks terribly inconvenient trying to get over that bar. And how much height will I need in my leg reach to be able to get over it? Some things, like even exercise bikes, I can't get over because I'm too short.
And maybe this is a good question. Francine, how tall are you?
Oh, I'm above 5 feet. I'm 5'5".
Yeah.
But I do believe the feet can come up and down.
Right, but it's getting my leg over the bar I'm concerned about because I'm 4'10" now.
You're 4'10". I do not think that would be a problem because then I do believe in Cody, I don't know, Morgan and Dr. Berry, whether the bar can go down, can be adjusted, because it would be adjusted for each person that's going to ride it. I don't think it matters, no matter how tall you are. Once they can put the seat down, you just hold on to the bars and put your feet over. Definitely when I was trying it was the very first time, and then it was already at a fixed height that we tried to get onto. Plus, we were trying to show how to get on and how to get off.
And maybe, Jane, perhaps what might help us out with this is if, because also, height matters, but also like length of legs also matters.
Yeah, that's right.
Different lengths of legs. So I'm wondering if you were to be part of the study, I think one way we could probably deal with this is to get you to see like how far can you lift your leg off the ground and try to see if we can measure that. And then we can measure it against the bike, or we can bring the bike to you too and test it.
Yeah, like I can measure it's very short because I can wear pedal pushers and it comes to my ankles, right? But the other question I had was actually about how do you charge it? Do you bring the battery upstairs to plug it in?
Yeah, so it's like a computer, like you charging a computer. It looks like a laptop charger actually. So you saw in that video the gentleman take out the battery pack, and you bring that inside. You plug that into the wall overnight, and then you go and you put it back onto the bicycle.
Yeah, and I'm not from Northwest Toronto. I'm interested in getting one for myself, but I want to go try it. And the other problem I have is there's no place to store it. I'm in a seniors building. And it would be problematic to take it down to the basement where you could park it. So there's no place to park it and lock it up. So anyways, I just wanted to know the size of it, and I appreciate this, your display anyway.
Thanks, Jane. And Jane, just to stay in touch with the Toronto Council on Aging as well, because what we're hoping to do is we're hoping to have more like just try the bike itself, like not be part of a study, but try out the bike. And we're looking to do that in the spring. So that might be something you might be interested in.
Yeah, because if it was fittable, I might consider buying one for myself, right? Because I'm kind of isolated here at Don Mills in Eglinton. although it's a busy intersection, there's not much except grocery store nearby, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And most of the time I need to get downtown, so that's taking like Wheel-Trans. So anyway, thank you so much. I'm going to sign off now, but I do keep in touch with
the TCA, please.
yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Before you sign off, Jane,
Yeah.
have you ever ridden a bicycle?
Yes, I have.
Okay, good. So now I was just thinking, though you say you're short, you have a proper span to hold the handlebars. And
That's right.
It's no different than a usual bicycle, the handlebars.
I can do that. I had a rental bike in Florida, and it looked like a children's bike, with those it was a cutesy one. And I managed to fit that. And I used to have a 10-speeder when I was younger, but I've started shrinking in my old age.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's hard.
And something else I can mention, I know when I had the opportunity to use one of those bikes from our Greenway and downtown, and something I learned, it's very steady. That type of bike can't turn over.
Right.
I think that's the correct terminology. So it's more steady than a two-wheeler.
Yeah, I don't want a two-wheeler.
Caroline wants to say something.
Yeah,
Right.
Jane, sorry, before you head off as well, you touched down on something really important, and it's the lack of infrastructure in condos, in residences for seniors. And I just wanted for Samantha and her team to take that as a takeaway, because advocacy on that as well is necessary for new builds that are coming out. And you also should ask the building that you live in, just to bring this up and say, in future, we could set aside a couple of parking lots for this type of thing in the future.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's no parking spots available. People are fighting over them here.
Exactly. So, it's just something to consider, and we all have to advocate and push this
good
forward.
Idea.
Okay.
I'm on the board, so I can push it.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Gotta lower my hand here.
Okay. Did anyone else have any questions about the bike? About using them, about the study?
Someone asked how much it would cost.
Oh, yes. Those bikes are quite expensive. I believe it was $7,000 for that. Yeah. Hence why trying to build a community lending program. So thanks to a grant from the Ontario Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility, we were able to buy these 2 bikes. And we also bought, this is going to speak to that earlier question, we actually also bought 4 bikes that have a bench seat in the front and an e-bike in the back for older adults in long-term care.
Okay.
And so that's our other project, setting up a cycling without age.
The other thing some of these senior buildings could do is they could be buying one of them for the use of their residents.
Yeah, that too, Jane. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Did you say 7,000? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, there are cheaper e-bikes out there, but the reason why we purchased this one was because of its stability and also because of its potential longevity. So usually cheaper bikes, they're gonna break, they're gonna stop working. And so we wanted to buy the best model available so that we could keep it for the longest amount of time. And by we, I mean our Greenway.